Hey, what's going on everyone? Greg here, and we're still trying to truly parse through everything that Apple is going to announce this year, but there is one product that is almost guaranteed to be launching this year, and that is the 2019 Mac Pro. And this is a product that is really anticipated from a lot of Mac fans out there because the last time that the MacBook Pro was updated was over 5 years ago. And although that Mac Pro was pretty cool looking, to be honest, and was a feat of engineering, there were a lot of problems with that 2013 Mac Pro design. Most notably was that it wasn't as user-friendly when it came to upgrading the components inside of that desktop Mac Pro. Furthermore, besides it being not upgrade friendly, Apple themselves could not even update the internals inside of the Mac Pro because they designed themselves into a thermal corner. And Apple even did something unprecedented by announcing that they did back themselves into a thermal corner and that there was a mistake with the design direction of the Mac Pro. Apple's Phil Schiller offered this: "I think we designed ourselves into a bit of a thermal corner, if you will. We designed a system that we thought with the kind of GPUs that at the time we thought we needed, and that we thought we could well serve with a 2 GPU architecture. That was the thermal limit we needed, or the thermal capacity we needed, but workloads didn't materialize to fit that as broadly as we had hoped. Being able to put a larger single GPU required a different system architecture and more thermal capacity than that system was designed to accommodate, and so it became fairly difficult to adjust." And if you follow Apple, how often do they admit that they made a design mistake? It's almost unheard of. So after being pinned into a thermal corner with the 2013 Mac Pro, what can we expect for the 2019 Mac Pro? From the start of this announcement that Apple was working on a new desktop Mac Pro, they said from the offset that they were designing a new desktop Mac that would be modular in design. So if we take Apple at its word, don't expect anything like the 2013 Mac Pro. They kind of learned from that mistake of just making a system that wasn't too upgradable, and they've heard the complaints from Mac Pro users who want to upgrade their system. So this 2019 Mac Pro should focus on user upgradability. And in the recent rumors, Ming-Chi Kuo even goes on to say that this will be a Mac that is focused on upgradability, and that's really no surprise. We've been hearing that for about the past 2 years now. So with a Mac Pro that's focused on upgradability, what kind of things will Apple have to do to make this an appealing desktop for Mac users? And I think that's basically that everything has to be upgradable, from the CPU to the RAM to the graphics card inside of this unit. Of course, out of the box, we can probably expect to see some high-end components already shipped inside of it. So a Xeon Intel CPU that's like in the Mac Pro, new graphics cards probably from AMD. It still remains to be seen how far Apple will allow this upgradability to go, if they will limit certain graphics cards, because currently Apple and Nvidia are not playing nicely with each other. They both want a certain amount of control over the system, and Apple's not willing to give up any control of macOS, and Nvidia's not willing to give up any control of their GPU architecture. So it will be really interesting to see if the Mac Pro allows for upgradability when it comes to Nvidia GPUs. Hopefully that will be the case, with Nvidia upgrading some of its drivers to work on the Mac. So it really is an open question of, will Apple allow Nvidia graphics cards on the Mac Pro? Hopefully they do, because the more choice that the user gets, the more choice that the consumer gets, and that consumers who buy a Mac Pro are really going to want to put whatever graphics card they want inside of it. That is something that Apple is going to have to address. Now with this new 2019 Mac Pro, upgradability with the storage is also going to have to be a priority. It's no secret that with the latest Mac designs, Apple has basically soldered on the solid-state storage directly onto the motherboard. By doing this, this kind of allows Apple to get some faster speeds out of those SSDs, but it also makes upgrading those SSDs impossible. So that kind of design with a modular Mac Pro is not going to work that well. Now, because Apple is making a desktop tower computer, what they could do is include multiple hard drives in it. So maybe initially when you buy the Mac Pro, maybe there will be an SSD soldered onto the board, but there will be additional bay drives that you can install. Maybe you can install another additional hard drive, or 2 hard drives, or maybe 3 hard drives. That means you could skimp out in the beginning, maybe not put on a super high capacity SSD, and then upgrade it yourself, which I think is probably the direction that Apple will be going with, because again, it needs to be an upgradable computer, but Apple also needs to solder on the SSD for things like the T2 security chip, and I don't think that Apple is going to be getting rid of the T2 chip inside of any of the Macs. The T2 chip gives them an additional level of security, and that is something that Apple has been taking really seriously lately. So I think we can expect the T2 chip to be on the Mac Pro, and I think we can expect to see some form of SSD memory that isn't upgradable. Now, for the most part, this computer is kind of sounding a little bit boring, right? It sounds like a desktop computer. It sounds like you could just buy a tower, put in all these components, and there you go, you have a Mac Pro. What could Apple be working on that makes this different? Especially considering that this product has been in development for about 2 years now. If Apple was simply going to make a desktop tower, why is it taking them so long to design it? So from my perspective, I think that Apple must be working on a new concept for a modular Mac Pro. So I think maybe this modular Mac Pro must have something unique in its design to make upgrading it a lot easier. Now, upgrading a current PC desktop tower isn't rocket science, but it does require a little bit of extra work. I've personally seen concepts of the 2019 Mac Pro where they kind of have these drawers that you can individually pull out, and that's where the components are housed. Maybe Apple is working on a design like that to make upgrading the components really simple inside of the Mac Pro. Something that would truly be innovative, something that would make it Apple-like, but also still give you the ability to upgrade the components. If Apple can make a super simple, a super easy way of switching out components, that would be a really welcome addition to a desktop line of computers. I'm also interested to see what kind of ports that Apple will put on the Mac Pro, and I personally think that they will include a lot of them. It seems like Apple's design philosophy from the MacBook to the desktop line of Macs is pretty different. So on laptop Macs, it seems that all we have are the Thunderbolt 3 ports, but if you look at things like the iMac Pro and the new Mac Mini, you get a lot of different port options on both of those computers. So I think for this 2019 Mac Pro, we can expect to see probably 6 Thunderbolt 3 USB-C ports, probably 4 USB-A ports, and other ports like an SD card slot, a gigabit Ethernet port, and of course a headphone jack, and maybe even another audio jack for pro audio users. I also think there's some other questions that aren't talked about that will be interesting to explore, like will Apple do anything different with the design of their mouse and keyboard to accompany this Mac Pro? For example, will Apple finally add the touch bar to a wireless keyboard? But the most important thing is that this 2019 Mac Pro needs to be able to handle the most demanding tasks out there. So this Mac Pro not only needs to be good at things like video editing and photo editing, but needs to handle much more complex tasks like AI research, VR, and augmented reality. Now, as for the price of this Mac Pro, I think we could probably expect to see it starting at the lowest $3,000, but maybe even higher at $4,000. I don't think it will approach the price of the iMac Pro, even though it will be a more powerful unit, just because it doesn't have to put its own 5K screen inside of it. That is a costly component, and the Mac Pro being a desktop can avoid including a screen. However, since we're on the topic of screens, another rumor that Ming-Chi Kuo reported on is that Apple is of course working on a new Pro display. So I thought now would be a good time to cover that in this video as well. But basically, we are looking at a 6K 32-inch Apple display. And there's a few additional tidbits in this report, although the details are a little sparse. He does mention that this new Mac display will use mini LEDs to create a amazing picture quality. So could this display be approaching OLED levels of picture quality without having to worry about things like burn-in? Another interesting thing that I haven't seen a lot of people talk about is that he specifically states that the display will be 6K by 3K. This gives you a 2:1 aspect ratio, and with a 2:1 aspect ratio, that is pretty much the same exact aspect ratio as the current iPhone X, and close to ultra-wide monitors that are 21:9. So maybe this new Apple Pro display will be more akin to an ultra-wide monitor instead of the current 16:10 monitors that Apple uses in their iMacs. And that could be a good thing for a lot of creative professionals out there, like video editors and music editors who are working with timelines, and by having that monitor be wider, you could fit more things on your timeline. The only question that remains for me is, will this Pro display feature anything advanced like Face ID? If Apple's making its own monitor, that means it controls the hardware and security inside of that monitor, so this could be the time to add the Face ID system to an external display that will work on any Mac. Now, all of these components sound pricey, and yeah, I think this Mac display, this Pro Apple display, is going to cost a lot of money. This Apple display is probably going to start at a minimum of $2,000. So if you're in the market for a Mac Pro and that Pro Apple display, I would start saving your money now. Now, for when both of these products are announced, I think we can expect to see both of these products at WWDC in June, so expect a couple more months before we fully see this product. Okay, but enough about what I think. What do you guys think? Are you excited for the 2019 Mac Pro? What features do you think that Apple will bring to it? What features are you looking forward to? Are you in the market for a Mac Pro? Are you in the market for a Pro Apple display? If you liked the video, make sure you give me a like. If you want to see more from the channel, make sure you're subscribed. And as always, I will see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone.